Among the 12 great gods and goddesses in the Greek pantheon, the name Aphrodite needs no introduction. Most people only know of her as the goddess of love and beauty, but there are numerous stories littered in ancient Greek and Roman mythology that show other facets of this wily goddess. Hopefully, this video can serve as a primer on Aphrodite. Let's start with her origin. In Hesiod's Theogony, Aphrodite was born when Cronus castrated Uranus's genitalia and usurped him as the new ruler of the cosmos. You might remember this if you've watched our video on the Greek myth of creation. The blood from the severed genitalia blanketed the earth and spawned a number of creations. When the dismembered limb reached the seas of Cytherea, foam started to appear around it and a beautiful goddess emerged from it. She was then appropriately named Aphrodite, as the Greek word aphros meant sea foam. Another origin story is presented by the Greek poet Homer, in which she was the daughter of Zeus and Dione. So we have one origin that says she's older than even Zeus, and one where she's the daughter of Zeus. Nevertheless, her origin plays no big part in the myths that she takes part in. Aphrodite was largely known as the goddess of love, lust, beauty, and also joy. Where she goes, laughter and joy follows. She was as much a goddess of happiness and festivities as Dionysus perhaps was. But the goddess of love aspect of Aphrodite is very much up for interpretation. On one hand, she's been known to champion love between a man and woman, which was mostly appreciated as monogamous back then. But on the other hand, she was depicted as someone who liked to have trysts and flings with other deities and mortals. While Zeus, king of the gods, was also known to have been lusty and had lots of affairs, Aphrodite's playing around was distasteful even for his appetite. So he compelled Aphrodite to marry Hephaestus, the god of craftsmanship and fire. Normally that would have been fine, but in most mythology, Hephaestus didn't have the handsomeness and masculinity that most other male gods were told to possess. On the contrary, some works even described him as having physical deformities. Another possibility for this is that since Aphrodite was older than Zeus, and very possibly more powerful, her union with another powerful god would threaten Zeus's rule over the cosmos, so he set her up with Hephaestus, who he knew to be lame. Because of his deformities and the fact that Hephaestus spends most of his time crafting and smithing stuff, they didn't have a happy marriage, which further prompts Aphrodite to often sneak off and have an affair with Ares, the god of war, and other Olympians. Opposite to Hephaestus, Ares was often described as the perfect alpha male, with a strong, muscular body and a handsome, rugged face. Hephaestus wasn't blind to their fooling around, and he hated it. So one day he set a trap on the bed that he and Aphrodite usually sleep in, which was often used by Aphrodite to have an affair with Ares. He would trap them with a golden net and expose them for all the gods and goddesses to see, hoping to catch Aphrodite and Ares in the act and humiliate them. When the trap was finally sprung though, to his surprise, Aphrodite didn't mind them watching at all. She even welcomed the exhilaration it provided her. I guess at that point, Hephaestus was at a loss for words and actions, because no further continuance was written involving Hephaestus and Aphrodite's relationship. Greek gods and goddesses have very human-like emotions and tend to act on them without much thought. Heck, most of the root causes in Greek mythology stories are because some deity overreacted to something they didn't like. The same can be said of Aphrodite. One story that might better describe this is perhaps the tale of King Menelaus of Sparta and Helen. King Menelaus had pleaded to Aphrodite to help him abduct and marry Helen in exchange for a promise to sacrifice a herd of good cattle to her name. After Aphrodite granted him her blessing and helped his endeavor, Menelaus didn't keep his promise. This angered Aphrodite, and the plot for revenge started to brew. One day, a beauty contest was held between Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite. They wanted to decide who was the most worthy to receive a golden apple with the inscription "to the fairest" on it. So they picked a human prince, Paris of Troy, to choose who was the fairest of the three. Aphrodite had secretly promised Paris that she would give him the most beautiful woman in the world if he picked her as the winner, so he did. Aphrodite then kept her promise and gave Helen to Paris as the gift. She told her son Cupid to make Helen fall in love with Paris. They then eloped when Paris visited Sparta. This was her vengeance against Menelaus for not keeping his word. Although she was the goddess of love, she didn't have any problem interfering with the love life of humans for her own benefit. That said though, she does root for love in humankind. Sometimes. Her most visible form of championing love can probably be seen from the story of Pygmalion. He was the king of Cyprus and a very talented sculptor. He once created a statue of a woman so beautiful he fell in love with his own creation. His love wasn't one between a creator and his creation, it was a lover's love. So he prayed to Aphrodite to bestow upon him a chance meeting of love with someone who bears a close resemblance to the physical features of his creation. Aphrodite was so moved by Pygmalion's worship of her and his earnest love for his ivory lady that she made that wish come true. When Pygmalion came home after worship, he kissed the statue with a deep longing in his heart. At that moment, Aphrodite's blessing took effect and transformed the statue into a living woman. Pygmalion's wish had been realized in the true sense. He then married his once ivory lady, and Aphrodite even blessed them with a daughter, or a son in some other works. This is one of the few examples where the gods and goddesses of Greek and Roman mythology were benevolent enough to simply act as a higher power and not do something selfish for themselves. There are, of course, other stories and tales that further depict Aphrodite in many other scenarios, enlightening us with new facets of the goddess with each different iteration. These are just two tales that in my opinion better describe the duality of Aphrodite in ancient Greek literature. In some other tales of heroism, you might find that Aphrodite is described as weak and of no concern to our heroes, while in others, her ability to beguile male deities and mortals alike is a force to be reckoned with, not unlike the deadly sirens of the sea. One example of a story that, in my opinion, fully displays the terror of her jealousy would be the story of Psyche, the most beautiful woman on earth, and Eros/Cupid, her own son. But that's a tale for another time.